Welcome back to Remake TV. You're watching The Elephant in the Room. I'm Jasmine Bowen. Now, before we get back to Gary landlord issues, reminder, $500. $500 just for referring your friends. Isn't that exciting? $500.
Oh, yes, it is.
Click on the contest banner, enter your friend's information, and we will send you a check for $500 if you're a lucky monthly winner. And at the end of the contest, one grand prize winner, $10,000, just for telling your friends about the great stuff on Remake TV. Now, Gary, so before the break we were talking about some kind of funny issues that arose. Roosters, brats, tenants who, you know, had a big personality, but I'm sure there's more serious issues that you found in some buildings. So do you have any stories about that?
Yeah. Like the things we were talking about, it's actually sort of related in a way because you're talking about bad tenants.
Right.
Now there's bad and there's really bad.
Okay.
And the really bad is, I mean, there's a lot of horror stories people hear about. And the bottom line is, as a landlord, like it's a business, right? And you know, of course, we always try to, you know, provide a good home for people, etc. But a lot of people, they don't want a good home. What they want is they want a free ride.
Okay.
So what will happen in those cases is you have tenants that are purposely trying to cause problems to find an excuse to get away with not paying rent.
Right.
They're so-called professional tenants.
Yeah, we talked about this
That's right.
before, yeah.
And the thing is, a lot of these people, they're actually unwitting professional tenants sometimes. Like some people are just very nasty, right? My experience was, like I was talking about, my earlier experience, like when I was younger, I was just basically concentrating on lower income properties. And it's part and parcel, like you honestly, you can't run away from it because if you're trying to rent something, right, a lot of people think that it's more prudent to lower the rent to keep a tenant. Right. Don't raise their rent, that kind of thing, right?
Right.
It can work, but not in low income neighborhoods.
Okay.
Because what will happen is there's always those that are looking to save $10, $15. These are people, not only are they scrounging for money, and it's not their fault. I mean, if they have like a low income.
$10 to you might not make a big difference, but to these people, it's
a lot of money.
Yes.
So on one hand, they're not bad tenants because they just don't have a lot of money. But the thing is, there's also a second category of people that when they do this, it's not because they don't have the money. They don't want to pay anything.
So they're coming in and coming up with every excuse in the book to not give you money.
They'll pay the first month. The second month. But the thing is, once that period is over, right, you start getting delays and things like this. Okay. And what normally happens is you might have like random damage. Okay. Damage that is not natural. If you know what I mean.
Yes.
Right? Like you can never prove it. You can never really prove it. If there's leaks and things like this, you can always chalk it up to being the age of the building, it's time to repair something. But the thing is, if it's like kind of obvious, it's happening over and over in one unit.
So you're having these tenants damage these things and
they're damaging it on purpose.
Rent?
You can't prove it.
Because your building is in shambles or something.
You can't prove it. That's the problem. And this is a problem with the rental laws. I mean, the rental laws are geared towards I mean, it's like democracy, right? You have mob rule. That's how some people describe democracy. Yes. That's what landlord-tenant relations are. There's the landlords are outnumbered by the tenants, you know, 20 to 1. Okay. So if you're a landlord and you have somebody who's accusing you of something, right, and you have to fight them, you have to have proof. But if you don't have proof and it's your word against their word, you'll never win. You'll never win. You have to put up with it. So these issues about landlords and tenants, I mean, honestly, it comes down to money. And a lot of times, it's not even worth fighting the tenant.
So
it's just
how
not
long
worth
have you had a tenant go without paying rent?
Over 6 months.
Over 6 months?
Over 6 months.
Bureaucracy and red tape involved?
Or? It was red tape, but the problem is when you go to the rent board, they have second hearings, and when you go to the second hearing, they'll pay the rent. They'll catch up, right? And then the thing is, they'll do it again, because they know there's going to be another few months in that process, and they stretch it on. But the problem is, if they are trashing your place, right? At some point, you're just going to say, forget it. Okay, fine. We'll let them get away with the 4 months of rent, 3 months of rent, whatever it is. That's what I've learned. You basically can't fight it. So it's actually very, like if things are going well, like for me, it's going very well right now.
That's good.
The credit checks are fine, but then again, I've had issues where you have a woman who's got very good credit, and then she gets a new boyfriend, right? And the boyfriend's a little psychotic, like I don't want to get into, but when I say psychotic, I mean psychotic, right? A crazy, abusive sort of man. And in that case, the good tenant becomes the bad tenant.
And you're making it seem like now it's actually the landlord is at the mercy of the tenants. It's not the other way around.
Well, I try to avoid that, and there are ways to avoid it.
But you are at the mercy of your tenants. I mean, you need your tenants to pay your rent.
No. I don't like thinking of it in that way. I mean, from the from the point of view of the law, yes, because it's a democracy, so-called democracy for tenants, right? Because supposedly all landlords are like kingpin multimillionaires, right? And
this is not true.
It's not true. It's not true. Most landlords, and I'm talking like well over 90%, are regular people that were former tenants. I mean, me myself, I'm a tenant right now. I rent in an apartment myself.
Okay.
And I only do that because I don't have the money to buy a house, because houses nowadays, as I said, like they're not...
Why do you not live in your own building?
I get harassed too much by my tenants to do this and that.
And that's another downside of being a landlord is, you know, Gary, come fix this at 2 a.m., Gary, come do that at 3 a.m.
You know what? It's worth it.
It's worth it to be outside of the building or to be a landlord?
No, because my goal was to be financially independent, right? So I'm, in a way, I could be described as semi-retired because I can go to sleep when I want, go where I want. I could do whatever I want. I mean, that's so much freedom that you get.
So it's worth everything that they're doing to you.
Oh yeah. The only way it would not be worth it is if I had, you know, these problems every month, which I don't.
All right. So we talked about tenants not paying the rent because they're being professional tenants.
Yeah.
Is your term for them? What about tenants not paying the rent because they are no longer existing? You had an issue with this.
It's not kosher to talk. I mean, if you have a tenant who's an older person, or if they have problems, like I had one tenant who was an alcoholic once.
Okay.
He had half blind, and he died
in the building.
He died in the building.
And how long did it take you to find this out?
Normally, I would find out quickly because I would go to get the rent, but he paid the rent ahead of time, the month before.
Was pre-planned?
I don't know. I don't like thinking about it because it's like I'm not so superstitious, but
was
in this case
for him to pre-pay the rent? No,
it wasn't.
So it might have been pre-planned.
It might have been. Okay. It might have been. He drank himself to death, basically. Okay. I mean, it was the place reeked of vodka and this kind of thing.
So how long did it take you to find him?
Other tenants were complaining of the smell.
So it was that bad. The other tenants.
It was pretty bad.
Wow.
It's something you never forget. I mean, I know that smell now, and I've smelt it in where I live right now because the same thing happened.
Oh dear.
And it's nothing you will ever forget because I walked in, and if you ever have an excuse to not be a landlord, this is it. Because if you have a queasy stomach, you have to put up with all kinds of stuff, and somebody not paying the rent is nothing compared to that.
Compared to this,
it's nothing. But the thing, funny thing is, I got used to it. Believe it or not, it's hard to explain. Like there was the cleanup. The city services came.
So it was a month or two before you found this guy?
No. It was like 2 weeks. So it was right in the prime of the,
Okay. But had there not been a smell, you never would have been alerted for a month later.
I would have come like 6 weeks later to collect the following month's rent. But once you, like the way, like there's hydrogen sulfide, right, which is a gas that's emitted by decomposing matter. Right, I'm talking about it in scientific terms. It makes your stomach queasy when you think about it. But like just when they take out the deceased, the smell lingers because it sticks to the surfaces, right? So I was in there cleaning. I mean, we called a company to do it, right? But they only get rid of the biological matter, but the rest, you have to tear apart the whole place. I was there for over a month, and I got used to it.
Your building, whether present tenants or future tenants?
No. The next tenant, they smelled something, but they didn't know what it was.
So you didn't tell them?
No. No, it's a smell of lemon because they come in with a chemical that interacts with this smell.
But what about affecting your building in terms of tenants that were there?
Few people were scared. I mean, they suspected it. I wasn't. I'm not allowed to talk about it because of the family.
Right.
Right. But the thing was, I was there for a month for a reason, because you literally can't clean it. You have to get rid of the drywall and things.
Right.
The smell it embeds in the material.
Yeah.
So you basically smash all the material and you rebuild the whole inside, repaint everything, rebuild all the walls, the gypsum. I mean, it's a big job. But
and this is worse than people not paying their rent.
Oh yeah.
All the red tape, and this is.
But you get used to it. You know what? As bad as something can get, it could be much worse than that. It could have been a shooting or something that you get in these really bad areas.
Right.
Right. That kind of thing. So, if you describe it to somebody, not that bad, because you get over it, and that's what I meant. Once it was taken care of, I got over it. I was there so much that, you know what? It's kind of like these forensic people in police work. People watch them and they can't believe that they didn't have no humanity in this. But the thing is, you know what? You do get used to it.
So to be a landlord, you have to wear all these different hats, including forensic cleanup.
I'm not a typical landlord.
Okay.
I mean, I do a lot of things hands-on. I handle like the financing. I'm an expert in that.
Do you think your tenants appreciate that it's you doing everything, or do you think they're annoyed that maybe you're not getting things on time?
No, I get everything on time.
Okay.
But like there's always, like, it depends on the person.
Now, there's a lot of people out there who are looking to escape the 9 to 5, and maybe to go into, I don't know, after hearing your story just now, but maybe looking to go into property buying, looking to make money there. What advice do you have for them, especially in this economic downfall of a market?
You know what? Everybody tries to time things, and it's hard to time things, but you have to set your goals on categories. So if you want to make your living in real estate or the stock market or working for somebody, real estate historically has been a no-brainer, right? The people are saying now real estate is more expensive, it's harder to do, et cetera, et cetera. And there's talk of hyperinflation if you know about fractional banking, et cetera. But the thing is, if you really think about it, if you were to choose something, it would have to be real estate. The difference between today and 15 years or 10 years ago is that your down payment is bigger. But if you can get the down payment and you buy in an area where there's not like excessive rent control and you manage properly, you literally can't go wrong. Like in my case, this was my goal. I mean, my goal was, this is an old goal. It wasn't something I set in 1 year and I did it in 1 year. I was planning this in the early 2000s. I was planning on selling the houses. I couldn't live off of those houses. The houses are different from apartment buildings. Right. Like if you look at apartment buildings, they always talk about cap rate. Right. And cap rate is the return you get on the selling value of the property. And cap rates, they get better and better the larger and larger the property becomes. I mean, the financing is different for, multi-unit residential, but once you are reaching that level, and that's the level I reached, I went from houses to that. It went from me having to work 9 to 5 and hating my job. I mean, I hated it. And honestly, from the outside, it looked nice. I mean, I was at Merrill Lynch. I was making 6 figures. Honestly, like the women, they liked it. Like they were impressed by that, right? So.
But I mean, it means nothing if you hate your
life. It means nothing. I hated it.
So
60 hours a week.
Is there anything?
It's not a job.
You love your life.
Yes.
Now, is there anything that would drive you from being a landlord? Something that you would see that would be like, that's it, I'm out of this business.
In the landlord business?
There's nothing that you can't handle?
There's nothing I've seen I can't handle. Okay. I mean, it's scary.
You don't know what's going to come up, though.
If you asked me this question a few years ago, I might answer different. But I've gone through a lot of stuff, and it's easy.
And it is great not working a 9 to 5 and kind of making your own schedule. And I know that you have a couple of other things.
I'm going to live 10 years longer because of this also.
Ah.
So it's not just, it's everything. It's the whole package, right? And if there were ever an excuse to do something for your life, you want to not just live longer and have time. I mean, that's what it is. It's time, right? But that time gives you all other things. I mean, it cascades to health. It cascades to family. It cascades to everything. So
what about in the future? What's the future for you? More buildings?
Oh, you know what?
Less buildings?
That was my plan a few years ago.
Okay.
It was to buy another building. I was actually looking at I don't want to say like it was a much bigger building in Hamilton, but because of 2008, I didn't do it.
Ah.
And it was a mistake. It was a mistake because if I had done that, I would.
Is more buildings at this point?
We'll see.
Okay.
Right. We'll see if the financial crisis doesn't turn into a full-blown explosion, which I actually think there's a very good chance it could happen. I mean, Europe is one thing, but if the United States keeps doing their quantitative easing and bulking up their money supply, it's inevitable that they're going to have some sort of a monetary issue with their dollar, reserve currency, etc. But that's another story.
Absolutely.
So,
and it sounds like you've learned a lot from being a landlord, and a lot about humanity, a lot about real estate, a lot about financial, which is great. It kind of puts everything together. Is there one last thing you want to leave us with before we close out? Anything from maybe a landlord point of view?
Well, not so much from a landlord point of view. It's that if you're fed up doing something, and you're still young and you have time, don't do it. Just do what you have to do to get out of that situation. Because if you don't and you let the years pass by, your opportunity will be lost.
Sounds like some very good advice. So I am Jasmine. You are watching Remake TV, the elephant in the room. Thank you very much for coming on the show, Gary, and sharing your experiences about being a landlord, and for telling us that it is worth it in the end. So make sure to click on our contest banner. You can win $500 a month just for referring your friends. Don't forget, and until next time, see you soon.